Listen up. Love isn't about tricks, games, or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about connection, real, raw, and authentic connection. Let me break it down for you. Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a cliff, the wind whipping through your hair, the sun setting in the distance. You're about to take a leap. Not just any leap, but the kind that changes everything. Now, what if I told you that the most powerful leap you can ever take isn't off a cliff, but into the truth of who you are? That's right. The moment you stop pretending, stop hiding, and start owning every single part of yourself, that's when the magic happens. That's when people sit up and take notice. That's when love starts to find its way to you. Have you ever met someone who just radiates energy? Someone who walks into a room and you can't help but look? It's not because they're the most beautiful or the most talented. It's because they're unapologetically themselves. They're not trying to fit into some mold or live up to someone else's expectations. They're just them, and that's irresistible. Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly, completely yourself? Not the version of you that your parents want, or your friends expect, or society demands. Just you, the real you. The you that laughs too loud, dreams too big, and maybe even dances in the kitchen when no one's watching. That's the person the world needs to see. People can smell inauthenticity from a mile away. You can't fake it. You can't pretend to be someone you're not and expect to build a real connection. It's like trying to fly a plane without fuel. It's just not going to work. But when you're real, when you're honest, that's when the engine starts to roar. That's when you take off. I've seen it happen. I've watched people transform their lives just by deciding to stop hiding and start living. And let me tell you, it's not always easy. It takes guts, it takes courage. But the payoff? It's worth every single second. Imagine a woman who spent her whole life trying to be the perfect girlfriend. She's always saying the right things, wearing the right clothes, doing the right stuff. But deep down, she's miserable. She's not happy because she's not being true to herself. Then one day, she decides enough is enough. She stops trying to be perfect and starts being real. She laughs at her own jokes, even if they're cheesy. She admits she loves bad action movies and doesn't care if it's not cool. She starts living her life on her terms. And guess what? That's when everything changes. That's when people start to see her, really see her. And that's when love finds her. Not because she's perfect, but because she's real. The more you embrace who you are, the more others will too. It's like a ripple effect. When you're confident in your own skin, it gives others permission to do the same. It's contagious, and that's where the real connection begins. Not in pretending, but in being. Not in hiding, but in shining. So I'll ask you again. When was the last time you let yourself be truly, completely, unapologetically you? If it's been a while, maybe it's time to take that leap, not off a cliff, but into the truth of who you are. Because that's where the magic is, that's where love starts. And trust me, once you take that leap, there's no going back. Picture this, you're sitting across from someone and the conversation is flowing. But it's not just small talk, it's real. You're asking questions that matter and you're truly listening. Not just waiting for your turn to speak, but really hearing them. Their dreams, their fears, the little things that light them up, and in that moment something shifts. They feel seen, they feel understood, and that's when the connection deepens. That's when love starts to take root. But here's the kicker. It's not about you, it's about them. It's about showing up, being present, and genuinely caring about who they are. Sounds simple, but let me tell you, it's a game changer. Think about the last time someone really listened to you. I mean, really listened. Not just nodded along while scrolling through their phone, but gave you their full attention. How did it feel? Like you mattered, right? Like you were the most important person in the room. That's the power of genuine interest. It's not about grand gestures or sweeping declarations. It's about the little things, the way you ask about their day and actually care about the answer. The way you remember their favorite book or the story they told you about their childhood. Those are the moments that build trust. Those are the moments that make someone fall for you. Imagine you're on a first date. You could talk about the weather, or you could ask them about the time they took a road trip across the country and got lost in the middle of nowhere. Which one do you think will spark a real connection? Exactly. It's about digging deeper. It's about finding out what makes them tick. What are their passions? What are their fears? What's the one thing they've always wanted to do but never had the courage to try? When you ask those questions, you're not just making conversation, you're building a bridge. And that bridge, it leads straight to their heart. I once knew a guy who was trying to win over this incredible woman. He didn't buy her expensive gifts or shower her with compliments. Instead, he paid attention. He noticed the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her favorite band. He remembered the stories she told him about how she used to sneak out of her house as a teenager to go to concerts. And one day he surprised her with tickets to see that band live. Not because he wanted to impress her, but because he genuinely cared about what made her happy. And guess what? She fell for him, not because of the tickets, but because he saw her. He understood her. He made her feel like she mattered. It's not just about asking the right questions. It's about listening to the answers, really listening. It's about being present in the moment and letting go of distractions. It's about showing them that they're worth your time and attention. Because at the end of the day, that's what we all want. To be seen, to be heard, to be valued for who we are. So the next time you're with someone you care about, try this. Put down your phone, look them in the eye, and ask them something real. Not just how was your day, but what's something that made you smile today, or what's a dream you've been too afraid to share. And then listen, really listen, because that's where the magic happens. That's where love begins. And once you've built that connection, there's no going back. You've created something real, something lasting, and that's worth more than any grand gesture or fancy. Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a diving board, the water below glistening under the sun. Your heart is pounding, your palms are sweaty, and every instinct is telling you to step back. But you don't. You take a deep breath and you jump. That moment, the split second between hesitation and action, is where life happens. It's where love happens. Because love isn't safe, it's not predictable, it's not a carefully calculated equation, it's a leap of faith. And if you're not willing to take that leap, you'll never know what could have been. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you took a risk for love? When was the last time you let yourself be vulnerable even when it scared you to death? Love requires courage. It's not for the faint of heart, it's for the brave, the bold, the ones who are willing to put it all on the line. Because here's the thing, you can't control how someone else feels. You can't make them love you back, but what you can do is show up. You can be honest. You can tell them how you feel, even if it means risking rejection. And yeah, it's terrifying. But you know what's even more terrifying? Regret. Wondering what could have been if you just had the guts to take that leap. I once knew a woman who had been in love with her best friend for years. But she was too scared to tell him. She was afraid of ruining their friendship, of making things awkward, of being rejected. So she kept quiet. She buried her feelings and pretended everything was fine. But deep down, she was miserable. Every time he dated someone else, it felt like a knife to the heart. And then one day, she couldn't take it anymore. She decided to take the risk. She sat him down and told him how she felt. And you know what happened? He felt the same way. They've been together ever since. But even if he hadn't felt the same way, even if he'd rejected her, she would have been okay. Because she took the leap, she was brave. And that's what matters. Vulnerability is strength. It's not weakness. It's not about being fragile or needy. It's about being real. It's about being real. It's about saying, this is me. This is how I feel. And I'm willing to risk it all for the chance at something real. And yeah, it's scary. But you know what's even scarier? Living a life where you never take risks, where you never put yourself out there, where you never know what could have been. Every great love story involves risk, every single one. It's not about playing it safe, it's about taking chances. It's about being willing to fall flat on your face if it means you might find something extraordinary. And here's the kicker. Even if it doesn't work out, even if you get hurt, you'll survive. You'll be stronger for it. You'll know that you had the courage to try. And that's something no one can ever take away from you. So, here's my challenge to you. Take the leap. Tell them how you feel. Be honest. Be honest. Be vulnerable. Be brave. Because love isn't about playing it safe. It's about taking risks. It's about jumping off that diving board even when you're scared. And who knows? Maybe, just maybe, they'll jump with you, and if they don't, well, at least you'll know you had the guts to try. And that's what makes life worth living. That's what makes love worth fighting for. So what are you waiting for? Take the leap. You're in a room full of people and everyone's trying to be perfect. Perfect hair, perfect clothes, perfect smiles, perfect smiles. But then there's one person, just one, who's not trying to be perfect. They're laughing too loud, maybe their hair's a mess, and they're not afraid to admit they don't have it all together. And you can't take your eyes off them. Why? Because they're real. They're human. And in a world full of people trying to be flawless, real is irresistible. That's the secret. Love isn't about perfection, it's about connection. It's about finding someone who sees you, really sees you, and loves you not in spite of your flaws, but because of them. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you let someone see the real you? The messy, imperfect, beautifully human you. We've been sold this idea that love is about finding someone perfect, someone who checks all the boxes. But let me tell you something. Perfect doesn't exist. It's a myth. It's a myth, a trap. And the sooner you stop chasing it, the sooner you'll find something real. Because real love, it's messy, it's complicated, it's two imperfect people choosing each other, flaws and all. And that's what makes it beautiful. I once knew a couple who seemed like they had it all. They were the picture perfect pair. Great jobs, great looks, great life. But behind closed doors, they were miserable. They were so focused on maintaining this image of perfection that they forgot how to be real with each other. They didn't argue, but they didn't connect either. It was like they were living parallel lives, never really touching. And then one day something changed. They stopped trying to be perfect. They started being honest. They argued, they cried, they laughed, they messed up. And you know what happened? They fell in love all over again. Not because they were perfect, but because they were real. Perfection is boring, it's predictable, it's safe. But love isn't safe, it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be messy and wild and unpredictable. It's supposed to make you feel alive, and you can't feel alive if you're too busy trying to be perfect. So let me ask you this. What are you hiding? What part of yourself are you keeping locked away because you're afraid it's not good enough? What if I told you that's the part someone could fall in love with? That's the part that could change everything. Every great love story is about connection, not perfection. It's about two people who see each other, really see each other, and choose to stay. It's about the little things, the way they laugh at your stupid jokes, the way they hold you when you're falling apart, the way they know exactly how you take your coffee even when you can't remember yourself. Those are the moments that matter. Those are the moments that build a life together. So here's my challenge to you. Stop trying to be perfect. Stop hiding behind this idea of who you think you should be, and start embracing who you are. Be messy, be real, be human, because that's where the magic is. That's where love begins. And once you find someone who loves you for you, not for some perfect version of you, but for the real messy, imperfect you, you'll know it was worth it. Every tear, every mistake, every moment of doubt. It was all worth it because you found something real. And in a world full of people trying to be perfect, real is the most beautiful thing of all. Imagine this. You're on a plane and the oxygen mask dropped down. What's the first thing you're supposed to do? Put on your own mask before helping anyone else. Why? Because if you're not breathing, you can't help anyone. Love works the same way. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't give what you don't have. And if you don't love yourself first, how can you expect anyone else to love you? It's not selfish, it's survival. It's the foundation of everything. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you truly loved yourself? Not the surface level stuff, but the deep, unshakable kind of love that says, I am enough exactly as I am. Self-love isn't about being perfect. It's not about having it all together or never making mistakes. It's about accepting yourself, flaws and all. It's about treating yourself with the same kindness and compassion you'd show someone you love. And let me tell you, that's not always easy. In fact, it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do, but it's also the most important. Because until you love yourself, you'll always be looking for someone else to fill that void. And no one can do that for you. No one. I once knew a woman who spent years jumping from relationship to relationship, always looking for someone to make her feel whole. She thought if she could just find the right person, everything would fall into place. But it never did because no matter how much love someone gave her, it was never enough. She was always left feeling empty, like something was missing. And then one day she hit rock bottom. She realized she couldn't keep living like this. So she made a decision. She decided to take a break from dating and focus on herself. She started therapy, picked up old hobbies, and learned how to be alone. And you know what happened? She found herself. She discovered who she was outside of a relationship, and for the first time in her life, she felt whole. Not because someone else completed her, but because she completed herself. You are enough, exactly as you are. You don't need to be thinner, smarter, richer, or more successful to be worthy of love. You're already worthy, right now, just as you are. And until you believe that, you'll always be searching for something outside yourself to fill that void. But here's the kicker. That void, it's not meant to be filled by someone else. It's meant to be filled by you, by your own love, your own acceptance, your own belief in yourself. How can you expect someone to love you if you don't love yourself? How can you expect someone to see your worth if you don't see it yourself? It's like trying to sell a product you don't believe in. It doesn't work. But when you love yourself, when you truly believe in your own worth, that's when everything changes. That's when you stop settling for less than you deserve. That's when you start attracting people who see your value, who respect you, who treat you the way you deserve to be treated. Start loving yourself, not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. Look in the mirror and say, I am enough. Even if you don't believe it yet, say it, and then say it again and again until it sinks in, until you feel it in your bones. Because you are enough, you always have been. And once you truly believe that, you'll stop looking for someone to complete you. You'll start looking for someone who compliments you, and that's where real love begins. Not in someone else's arms, but in your own heart. So take a deep breath, put on your oxygen mask, and start loving yourself. Because you're worth it, you always have been. Imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a runway, the engines of a fighter jet roaring behind you. The wind is whipping through your hair, your heart is pounding, and every instinct is telling you to stay grounded. But you don't. You take a deep breath, push the throttle, and launch yourself into the sky. Why? Because you know that staying on the ground means staying small, and you were born to soar. Love is no different. It's not for the timid or the hesitant. It's for the bold, the brave, the ones who are willing to take risks, to push boundaries, to go all in. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you took a risk for love? When was the last time you stepped out of your comfort zone and went after what you truly wanted? Love isn't a spectator sport. You can't sit on the sidelines and wait for it to come to you. You have to get in the game. You have to take chances. You have to be willing to put yourself out there even when it's terrifying. Because here's the truth. The greatest rewards come from the greatest risks. And if you're not willing to take that leap, you'll never know what could have been. I once knew a man who was madly in love with a woman, but he was scared. Scared of rejection, scared of getting hurt, scared of putting himself out there, so he played it safe. He stayed in the friend zone, hoping she'd figure out how he felt without him having to say a word. But she didn't, and one day she met someone else. Someone who wasn't afraid to take a risk. Someone who told her how he felt, even though it was scary. And you know what happened? She fell for him. Not because he was perfect, but because he was brave, because he was willing to take that leap. And the man who played it safe, he was left wondering what could have been. Don't let that be you. Love requires courage. It's not for the faint of heart. It's for the ones who are willing to face their fears, to step into the unknown, to risk it all for the chance at something real. And yeah, it's scary. But you know what's even scarier? Regret. Wondering what could have been if you just had the guts to take that leap. Every great love story involves risk. Every single one. It's not about playing it safe. It's about taking chances. It's about being willing to fall flat on your face if it means you might, just might, find something extraordinary. And here's the kicker. Even if it doesn't work out, even if you get hurt, you'll survive. You'll be stronger for it. You'll know that you had the courage to try. And that's something no one can ever take away from you. So here's my challenge to you. Take the leap. Tell them how you feel. Be honest, be vulnerable, be brave. Because love isn't about playing it safe, it's about taking risks. It's about jumping off that diving board even when you're scared. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, they'll jump with you, and if they don't, well, at least you'll know you had the guts to try. And that's what makes life worth living. That's what makes love worth fighting for. You don't get a second chance at this. Life isn't a dress rehearsal. This is it. This is your moment. So what are you waiting for? Take the leap. Push the throttle. Launch yourself into the unknown. Because you were born to soar. And love is the wind beneath your wings, so go after it, fight for it, fight for it. Because in the end, the only thing you'll regret is not trying. So take a deep breath and jump. The sky's the limit.